Awesome. Got a few kind of coming in here. Hey, Daryl, good to see you again. Hi, Brooke. Tamara or Tamara. Hi, Wendy. We usually have these in the afternoon and I'm not downing coffee quite so hard, but it's a little earlier today. And so yes, I'm downing the coffee. We've got about 11 in here. It was a couple minutes past the hour when we started. So I'm gonna give a few more seconds for people to get in here. And while I give just a brief introduction, for those who've been around and done these, I do these every month. And as I've kind of hit a rhythm, I'm trying to do workshops that are one in theme with my monthly topic. And this month we're working on finances and profitability. And that is kind of also in line with what I work on with my private coaching clients. And so I just get to really delve into that topic super hardcore for everybody. Danae Wolf here is our guest presenter, and she is the CEO of the Chic CFO, the founder and CEO of the Chic CFO, virtual accounting company, and you do bookkeeping as well, which is really exciting because a lot of us, as I was mentioning to her just before we got on, we start businesses without really having done it a ton. And so the bookkeeping part is always somewhat intimidating and new. And by the time we get to the point where we actually hand over our books to someone who knows what they're doing, it's usually a huge mess. And so we're hoping to avoid that by giving some tips and tricks and information to people that before they get to that point. Few things about how this goes. We're going to have a conversation and you guys can drop questions in either the Q&A or in the chat. If you do access the chat, you can see that we have already dropped a few links. So the Chic CFO website is actually a freebie. So you're welcome to open that up, and it's a profit and loss template. And we're going to go through that here as well. But then there's also her Facebook group, which is another place that you can go and ask questions and get support and find her if you want to actually bring on a bookkeeper. And so both of those are already in there. So go ahead and click away. If you, for whatever reason, don't get around to it, the template is also going to be loaded into the membership portal at mobilebevpros.com, and along with a recording of this. So you can watch it again later if you'd like. And just to head off any questions, people who are members of Mobile Bev Pros have access to the recording. If you are not a member of Mobile Bev Pros, you will not have access to the recording or this template after this hour-long little bit here. So I get usually emails afterwards, so clarifying that now. Okay, I'm going to introduce Danae. She was a perfect fit for this because not only is she an entrepreneur herself, but she has experience running restaurants, which as restaurant bookkeeping, I think restaurant bookkeeping, and I don't have a ton to compare it to, but I have kept the books for restaurants. There's a lot. It's lots of transactions, it's a lot of, on both directions. So if I was going to say, like, start somewhere that really challenges you, it'd be a restaurant. There's just so much coming and going. And there's, cost of goods and all of the things. There's assets, like it uses all of the faculties of a bookkeeper, if I know anything, which is enough to be dangerous.
I don't know if you can, in the Q&A, Leslie said that she doesn't see any links. She said there's no links in the chat.
Oh, okay.
I see them in the chat, but I'm not.
Too, but I will see what I can do about that. Where did my little chat panel go?
Yeah, then Alex is saying, yeah, everybody's saying it.
I fixed it.
Okay.
Good. Thanks for letting us know, Leslie.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
All right. So my first question for you, what are the biggest mistakes that you see little entrepreneurs like ours who get started because we're super passionate about something, and we just kind of get rolling, and then we realize, oh shoot, we really actually need to be doing something here with our numbers. What's the biggest mistakes that you see?
Okay. So it's definitely going to be plural. These are going to be mistakes, not just one big mistake.
Mhm.
So the first thing I think is that I like that you use the word passion. So I think as entrepreneurs, we're creative, right? So we are definitely passionate about something, following this dream. And I think that a lot of times we forget that we really did it to make money, right? So it kind of comes backwards. We think we want to make money, right? We all know we need money. And then the entrepreneurs in us says, okay, well, I want to do something I'm passionate about. That's kind of what separates us from an employee. They're like, oh, we need money, I'm just going to find a job. But an entrepreneur is like, well, I need to make money, I'm so passionate about this, I'm going to go into this. But then somehow in this life coaching, positivity guru space, there has been this message of if you are in it for the money, you are in it for the wrong reasons. Somehow that became this gimmick that has stuck. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, it's just dangerous to be spreading that message that, you know, you're here to serve and you have to be in it for the right reasons, or you're not going to be successful if you're in it for the money. Somehow that became a thing. And the reality is the money is how you're going to keep the lights on, right?
Yep.
So I think one of the big mistakes I see is people are following their passion and they're just completely neglecting their money because either A, it's faux pas, right? And they're like, well, I'm not supposed to be motivated by money. I'm supposed to be serving my customers. And as long as I serve my customers, the money will come. That's false. It's completely false. The best way for you to serve your customers, serve your team, and serve you and your family is to make sure that the numbers are in order, because otherwise everything's going to go under and you can't serve anyone.
Yeah, we like to
So
say
we want
here, if you're not making money, you're running a hobby, not a business.
so that was going to be my next point, treating it like a business and not treating it like a hobby. So you really want to make sure that you are legitimizing the operation. So what I mean by that is making sure you have some type of a business formation. So if you want to be an LLC versus electing to be taxed as an S corp, educating yourself and knowing the differences for that. My advice is you're going to start with an LLC. In regards to taxes, and we won't get too deep into this, but in regards to the tax implications, a sole prop and an LLC is going to be treated the same, but there's that legal layer of protection if we do an LLC. So getting into the S corp election, the only thing I'll say about that is I see it very much misused. The big thing to remember for that is you should not even be considering it until you are about $50,000-$60,000 a year in net income, which is your profit.
Thank you. I see this all the time. If you guys are in any other Facebook groups where people are like, you should form an S and you should choose S Corp, that is a huge misconception until you are making at least, like she said, $50,000 to $60,000. That is not going to benefit you tax wise. So
yes. I actually just did a whole presentation on this, and I did a real life comparison of showing an LLC tax implication versus an S corp election. And that business, the net income was like $187,000 for the year. And electing to be taxed as an S corp only saved them like $2,700. So by the time you add in the extra costs, they weren't netting a lot. This was a business whose profit was $187K for the year. So when I hear people with net incomes of 40, 45,000 saying, well, I'm an S corp because I'm saving money, I cringe, because typically you're not. And I think one of the big reasons that this happens is tax professionals are encouraging it because they're saying S corp save money in taxes, which is a true statement, but they're leaving out the fact that there's extra costs and there's also a lot of compliance issues. But from the tax preparer's perspective, they get to charge you more. So of course they're going to push everybody into doing an S corp.
Absolutely.
That's a big mistake I see, but just making sure that you are set up as something, right? Whether you filed your LLC, you've researched and decided to elect as an S corp, making sure you have all of the proper, depending on your area, business licenses, permits. Every area is going to be a bit different.
That's right.
And the big thing, once you set up kind of that foundation with that, come to the money, and there needs to be a division of church and state. You need to make, I see this all the time, treating our business like a business, not a hobby. It needs to have its own dedicated bank account.
Yes.
We cannot be commingling funds.
Or
So
if you stick around here for very long, I will rave about profit first all day long. And so you can have one business bank account, or you can have 8 business bank accounts, but they're business bank accounts.
business. Yes, they cannot be, we don't want to be scrolling through and seeing that your groceries are mixed in there, your mani-pedi is mixed in there. Those aren't business expenses. And we want to make sure that we keep those separate. That is a huge thing that I see happen, because now when it's time to file your taxes, there's so much to sort through.
Yep.
When your life could be so much easier if we just had one bank statement we could go through, and we know they're all business expenses.
Yep.
So that's definitely something that I see that happens a lot.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. There are other ways that I see in this digital age, it gets really, really hard. Amazon is like a saving grace for business owners, especially for people in the mobile bar industry, because almost everything we need is on there. You can get it in 2 days. And so like whatever.
Yep.
Open an Amazon business account if you don't already have it, because this is like the most annoying thing for me at the end of every year is going through an entire year's worth of Amazon purchases and like highlighting that was for the business, that was for the business, that was for the business, right? My bookkeeper hates me. And so once I got a separate Amazon business account, not only did I qualify for some like bulk discounts and stuff, which was nice, but then I could just literally like, this is all my business stuff and this is all my personal stuff. So even small things like that can really junk up your bookkeeping at the end. Even if you were to pay for it with a different card, it kind of gets, because sometimes it goes through, it's got an auto card, right? Like try and separate as much as you can.
Yeah. And I see that the Amazon nightmare, but I also see it a lot with PayPal. Having to separate the business and the personal.
They make it so easy just to check out with PayPal.
Yeah, it's so convenient. But then I went through this with a client 2 days ago on a share screen, because I'm like, there's so many PayPal transactions here. I don't know what's personal and what's business, because you told me you're commingling too. Right. So it's something that is just going to make your life so much easier, especially if you're not working with a professional. You need to keep it as simple as possible. So you want to make sure that you really have those things completely separate.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. I love that advice. Okay. So we've talked about establishing yourself. And so I'm not going to go into too deeply, but most of us are set up as LLCs. That is a legal protection.
Yeah.
But you can certainly be, a sole proprietor. You can, certainly do it any way you want. Most of us are LLCs. That's legal protection. You can choose to be taxed as an S corp if you'd like, or partnership if you'd like, right? There's a number of different ways that you can go about it. So we've talked about that. We've talked about separating church and state, meaning keeping your business. And sometimes, you know what, you're out there and you're at Costco and all you've got, because they only take like visas or something, and your business thing is a MasterCard or like whatever, right? You got to swipe your personal card. That's fine. But you have to make sure that you keep those separate, highlight the things that were business related, take a snapshot. I use Wave. I don't know how you feel about that. Most people, bookkeepers, prefer QuickBooks, and I used QuickBooks for a decade. It's super expensive. If you are a new bookkeeper, or if you are a new business owner, I find Wave, it's free and it's super intuitive. I don't know if you've ever played with it, but it has like a receipt app, just like everything else. So take a picture before you lose it, because you always will, or you'll keep it in the car and then get all black because the heat messed it up, right? And so try as much as you can to separate those expenses. What else? What else can we do as new entrepreneurs that don't yet have a bookkeeper to prepare ourselves for when we do hire a bookkeeper?
Right. So you want to make sure that once you've separated these transactions, right? You know that you're just dealing with your business transactions in your business checking account. The next thing that you want to do is, I really recommend you do this weekly. Okay. I feel like it's something, I don't know if you use Asana or ClickUp or whatever, or even just your Google Calendar, whatever your task management approach is, this needs to be on there. Like, it needs to be on there that you are going to do a financial check-in every single week. Okay. At minimum, do it monthly. but I really like to see it happen weekly, and I'll explain why. So when we look at last month, let's say, for example, that's a lag report. It's already happened. So it's too late to intervene and do anything and try to kind of course correct.
Right.
So if you discover on July 30th that on June 5th you were wrongfully charged by a vendor, now you have like you waited way too long. Like, you're probably going to get the money back still, but it would have been nice for cash flow purposes to have found that in real time.
Right.
So you really want to make sure that you're logging into the bank account and we're reviewing these transactions every single week, if possible. Dedicate time.
Okay.
Now, when you're reviewing it, you want to start putting them into buckets, which basically means we're going to categorize them.
Right.
So what I mean by that is, let's say it's, I don't know, a charge from Facebook. It's probably Facebook ads, right? So we want to say this is marketing. Let's say it's a charge from the Staples, right? Chances are that's office supplies.
Right.
So you want to start separating these expenses and putting them into groups, putting them into categories so that you can really start seeing where your money is going.
Okay.
The other thing
right there, just for a hot second, for members of the MVP, we have a sample mobile bar chart of accounts that I created for y'all to get you started. This is the buckets that she's talking about. These are the categories. So it's going, and you can set it up pretty easily in QuickBooks or in Wave it'll tell you whether it's an expense or whether it's an income account or an asset account or liability account, right? Yeah. And then it'll tell you what to call it, right? And so, marketing or cost of goods or whatever that might be. And I'm actually going to write that down because I'm going to have you go over cost of goods versus expenses as well, because I think that can be really confusing to some people that are just starting out. But when she's talking about categories, she's talking about a chart of accounts. And so you can go in there, download that. I have removed all of the superfluous stuff that other businesses might need that mobile bars generally don't. So it's a good kind of starter place. There's even one that's for, it's like $9,999. You don't have to use numbers, but it says ask your accountant. So if you don't know where to put it, don't just stick it somewhere because you'll lose it. Like, just stick it in that bucket.
Yeah, that's a good one. I always have an ask account with my clients. So when she says chart of accounts, so think about it like this. When we look at the actual finance report, so when we're looking at the profit and loss statement, the chart of accounts dictate how the expenses show up on there. So in your chart of accounts, if you have an account of social media marketing, then when you look at your profit and loss report, anything that you have categorized to social media marketing, it's all going to show up there on your profit and loss statement. So customizing that chart of accounts is one of the top things you want to do when you're setting up your bookkeeping. So her resource would be excellent for you guys to make sure that you have that.
And don't get too complicated. It gets very tempting to be like marketing Instagram, marketing Facebook, marketing, like, in my opinion, like, you're not there yet. Like, don't get so granular.
It needs to be simplified.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be simplified, unless this is something that you are, when it comes to marketing, if you are making an investment in maybe Facebook ads, or maybe you're doing Google AdWords, if that's something where we want to make sure we can calculate our return on investment, then you're going to want to separate it, because that's a specialized situation where you really need to see, okay, how much money, I don't want to see all my marketing in one bucket. I want to see what I spent on Facebook ads, because now when I'm looking at my revenue report for the month, I'm going to be able to compare what I made off the Facebook ads. Yeah. So in a situation like that, you want to break it down and get more micro. Right. But on a regular basis, everything can go onto marketing if it was actually a marketing expense.
Yeah.
And something to point out when we're talking about how we categorize things, there are very few things that you're going to categorize that actually have a tax implication. So these categorizations are for you. Okay. It's a way for you to be able to look at the data and gain insight that's going to help you make operational improvements in your business. So you really can customize it to your liking, because what you want to kind of reframe your brain to do, because a reason why I think so many entrepreneurs neglect their numbers, one of many reasons why they neglect their numbers, is we kind of have this idea that they're just for tax time. So this is just something that you have to have ready so that you can file your taxes. When the reality is, if done right, and if you're in there looking at these numbers every week, categorizing them, and then actually reviewing it and saying, where did I spend money? There's so much information you can get from there. I did a review like a week and a half ago, and there was probably $400 to $500 worth of expenses that the client told me she thought she had canceled. They were recurring monthly subscriptions. She was like, wait a minute, I canceled all of these. And I itemized the list out for her, added it all up, and was like, that this is over $400 a month that you've been spending that you thought you had canceled. Things like that happen all the time, all the time. So you really want to make sure that everything is separated. We're putting them all into appropriate buckets, but then we're actually reading back the report and trying to gain information from it so we can make better decisions in our business.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Because I mean, there are even now apps coming out that are like, sign up and we'll tell you what you have reoccurring, because everything is a SaaS product now.
Yes.
Everything is a recurring. You have to pay for all these things monthly or annually. I have one thing that I purchased probably 4 or 5 years ago because I was told I needed it, and it's $9.99 a year. It's just $9.99 a year. But they have since changed their name. I can't even find this company anymore. It just keeps recurring, but it's like $10. And so I'm like, oh, every year I see that, I'm like, that's annoying. But what I have since done, and I recommend this for anybody, whether you're using ClickUp, Asana, whatever you use, create a list of all the SaaS products that you subscribe to ever. Like as soon as you sign up for something, you're like, okay, I need to add this to the list. The list is embarrassing, I'm going to say. It is really long, but at least then every once in a while I can peek at it and be like, oh, you know what? I don't need this anymore, and I can cancel it. Yeah. But then also I'm like, okay, now I know I'm spending $1,000 a year on SaaS products, right? It's so easy to just let that go, but it adds up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why you want to, I believe, check in weekly, because you can really course correct and see, like, you might have a situation where you look at the numbers at the end of the week and you're like, wait, my numbers are much higher than normal. Why is that? And then you can in real time remember, okay, what did I do differently this week that might have had a boost in sales, so that you can repeat that. Or maybe you have a situation where you're like, wait, sales have tanked. Why is that? And it's much easier to do this in real time than going back and looking at past month. And when I say going back and looking at past month, I'm actually being very generous, because what I actually find happens is that people don't look at this at all. Then they have to file their taxes and they're looking at a whole year. Once the accountant is done putting it all together, now they're looking at a whole year, and it's taxes due in April. So it's probably like May or June. So many people have to file extensions just because their stuff isn't up to date. So you are looking at such old information, which is useless to you. I mean, it's great for the IRS so that they can get their taxes, but for you as the entrepreneur, it's completely useless.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I shared with you, some of you probably know this, I've probably said it before. I was the executive director of profitability and finance for a 5-restaurant, $25 million company for about 5 years. So a bunch of fives in there. And all I did all month long was bookkeeping. That's literally what I did. I would close the books because there were so many transactions. I would plug these numbers into ridiculously complex Excel spreadsheets that would give managers the ability to make decisions, because otherwise they'd have to wait for me to close the books by like the 7th of every month in order to know what was going on and what they had money to do, and like, do they need to hire more staff? Can they afford to hire more staff, right? So like, that was literally a full-time job for me. I know how to do this. I close my books every February. That's it. I don't do it. I know this is bad. I know this is bad. This is like naughty Sarah. Like, you should not be doing this. This is a shitty way to run your business. So I know better, but I didn't do better, which is why I hired a bookkeeper for the first time for my business during COVID. Like, I knew that this was something that now more than ever is so important for me to know where my numbers are, because you cannot just close your books every February and like, that's not a good way to run a business. So I'm going to be the one that's out here saying, if you guys are doing it this way, I totally understand. I am at fault too, but now we really like, this is a super important topic and I know better. Now you know better.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up COVID because I don't think accountants have slept in like 3 months. It's been crazy because, you know, in order to apply for EIDL or PPP or any of that stuff going on, you have to have your numbers in order. And so many entrepreneurs have just been like, oh no, like now I actually have to deal with the elephant in the room,
Right.
that I haven't really been legitimizing my business and treating it like a business. I don't have these reports. I don't have the stuff I need to gain access to these really great government programs. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are finally, I guess that's one positive that's come from this mess. People are starting to appreciate how important it is to have your numbers in order and know what's actually going on in your business.
Yeah. And especially, I'm glad you brought that up, because anyone who has taken an EIDL or a PPP loan, there are specific ways that you are allowed to use it. You have to use it by a certain amount of time. And so even once you get approved and you get funded, there are bookkeeping requirements in order to
Yes.
ensure that you don't get, you know, stuck with fines later, or that, you know, things qualify for forgiveness, you know, that you've
Yep.
used it properly. So if you haven't been doing your books, that could certainly be a problem with these loans. We have a question here from Alex, and he said, will y'all talk about, I love y'all, tips and tricks for QuickBooks?
What did he say? I was trying to read it as you were saying it, but I couldn't see it. He asked, what did he ask?
Sorry, I muted myself because my dog's going crazy. Would you all talk about tips and tricks for QuickBooks?
Oh, okay. So QuickBooks, honestly, everything you need, you will be able to find on YouTube. Like 100%, 100%. It is not that scary of a software, but I have a like demo account. Give me 1 second. It's usually in my bookmarks. And I can like share my screen with you guys and just give you just like a feel for the interface. So let me get logged onto that. But the big thing here we go, with QuickBooks is it's very technologically advanced. So what you're going to hear is a lot of I'm trying to say it, more old-fashioned senior type accountants are going to be pushing you to be on QuickBooks Desktop. I'm a big fan of QuickBooks Online. I just think it's the more modern software. You can use it right from your phone. There's an app. So is my connection really bad, or is it just looking like that on my end?
Your connection looks great on my end, but I have...
Oh, okay. On my end, it looks really slow. So there is an option within QuickBooks Online to connect your banks. I have had a lot of situations where more old-fashioned bookkeepers have kind of ingrained it in their clients' brains that you don't want to do that it's not safe, that nope, everything is safe. Use technology. Like a big piece with dealing with anything with your finances, like let's use an app when we can. So if I can share my screen.
One thing I will say about some of those, and while you're figuring out the screen share, is that some banks and some connections and some syncing, whatever, can be really glitchy. And so, for example, I have a lot of bank accounts because I practice profit first. And sometimes they'll pull in two, like double entries, which can be annoying. And I can see why a bookkeeper would rather just, input it themselves. But yeah, use the technology when it's available, because we're already really shitty about doing our books. So let's make it as easy as possible.
So here, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is just a fake account. It's a demo account. So when you get onto QuickBooks Online, you could just go to, QuickBooks.com and sign up. And I think it's like the first 30 days are free. So when you're on it'll walk you through, it's kind of like a setup wizard. So it'll walk you through to set up everything in your settings here. So basically it's like upload your logo. What is the company name? What is the company address? What is your EIN number? It'll walk you through how to set up all of the settings in here. And of course my computer is being really slow, probably because I'm on streaming, but so you'll set up all those things. But again, very user-friendly because it's literally a wizard. Like you're walking through and it's just asking you questions and kind of getting that all set up for you. So once you get past that and now you're logged in, you want to go to your banking section, and this is the main hub where when I say get into your books every week, like this is where you want to be. So you're going to connect your banking, any finance institution. So what I mean by that is your bank, where you have your business checking, your business saving, and if you have any business credit cards, right? So maybe you have an Amex or something like that. So there's literally a button that says link right here, and you can choose your financial institution, and you would literally just like, I picked Chase. Obviously, I'm not going to log into somebody's bank account right now, but it would pop up and just give you an opportunity to put in your username and password for Chase, for whatever your bank is. And you connect them just by logging in. And now what it does is all of those transactions come here into the bank feeds. So everything will be sitting here for you. So when you log in each week, you're going to be able to categorize it. So here's just an example. Again, this is a total dummy account. So this is all made up from QuickBooks, but there it says Amazon software, right? So what it does is pull in for you whatever the bank text says. So if you were to log onto your bank and look at this transaction, the bank memo, so to speak, says Amazon software. And it tells you that it was $89.99 that you received from there. So either this could be a situation where maybe you're an Amazon affiliate and you sell something, but chances are it's a refund, right? So this is a big question I get all the time. Well, what do I do if it's a refund? So if it's a refund, you simply book it back to where you booked it in the first place. So let's say that we had, and I'm just going to make an expense here. So we're going to say that we had an Amazon charge on July 29th. Of course, my computer is crawling. So let's say that the Amazon charge was for office supplies. And it was $89, which I believe is what the refund was, $89.99. So we know that we charged that to office expenses. So now when we have the refund come in, we literally just book it right back to office expenses. And you always want to make sure that you set your payee. So this is Amazon. And then all you do is hit add.
One of the things I really like about Wave, and I'm not pushing people to Wave over QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is the industry standard. It is literally the best out there. I like Wave because it's free and it is a little bit more dummy proof than QuickBooks. Like even me with a decade worth of experience with QuickBooks managed to screw up my own books with QuickBooks when I started because I just did it wrong. But with Wave, what I really like is that when you get a refund, it won't let you put a refund towards an account, like an income account. Yeah. It literally will, like, you have to pick refund to which account it is.
That's a nice feature.
It is nice.
It's a very popular question I get asked.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually one that I have, so that's one of the things that stuck out to me with Wave is like, oh my gosh, this is great for people that are newbies because it's so easy to do this wrong. Yeah. I've even seen people that like literally have created a chart of account that says refunds. It's like,
yeah, I've seen that too. So a really good tip for QuickBooks, since he had asked about, little tips and tricks. So, number one, making sure you book a refund to wherever you originally booked the expense. But rules are your best friend when you're using QuickBooks. So in this transaction, we can see that the bank says this is Lara's lamination business card, right? So we're going to set up the payee as Lara's lamination, and we'll hit save. And then we are going to say that this is for business cards. So we're going to say that this is advertising. So let's say that you always buy your business cards from Lara's lamination. This is where you always go. There is a button right here that says create a rule. So what you're going to do is name the rule. So we'll just say, this is business cards. And we're going to set different parameters for it. So we're saying that anytime money comes out, and we can say specifically on the MasterCard or the checking account or the savings account, or you can click a button to say all of my bank accounts. Anytime I make a purchase with Lara, no matter which financial institution it is, I'm going to set this rule, and it's always going to go to advertising. And then we hit save. And what happens is every single time that you make this purchase, sorry, I don't know how to turn those alerts off on my computer, that you make a purchase to this vendor, those rules will pop up. So when you're in your bank feeds, it's just going to say rule, and you can just add it.
Yeah.
Making your life a lot easier. Now, the other thing you can do is in that rule section, there is an auto add button, which means that you can literally tell QuickBooks to say, I don't even want it to be in my bank feeds at all. If you see a charge from Lara's, automatically put it directly onto my profit and loss. Right. So you can really set this up to be extremely, extremely streamlined. Yeah. If you know that you shop with the same vendors, right? Go in and set rules for them. So if you connect all of your bank accounts, right, as your sort of step one, what I always suggest and what my actual approach is, what my team of bookkeepers does, is we go to this description tab, right, and we just hit it, which now alphabetizes it, right? So it's going to put in a list all of the same vendors. They'll kind of show up in a chunk, right? So let's say we had a ton of Amazons. They'd all be here because now it's alphabetized. And then maybe the next one down is, I don't know, Bob's Furniture or something. That's the next one down, and so on in ascending order. You're able to quickly look at this and say, okay, the Amazon chunk is this long. Bob's is this long. Like, you can see the vendors you're shopping with and go in, and when is the recurring charge, you're going to keep working with them, you're going to set a rule. And now if you hit that auto button, maybe you connected your bank account and you had 1,000 transactions. Well, maybe 200 of them were all to the same exact vendor. If you set that rule and you hit auto add, all 200 transactions are now out of your bank feeds and sitting safely on your profit and loss.
Totally.
So it's a really great process to get in and just clean up very quickly. The other day I did a January to June cleanup in less than 2 hours because we were able to get the bank accounts connected, get everything in there. And she's pretty consistent with the purchases that she makes. So we set a bunch of auto rule ads, and every time I selected a vendor, I was moving, 150 transactions off this bank feed.
Amazing.
So I would say those are really the best tips to go in. You really want to make sure that you master this bank feeds, because that's really where you are going to be living. Yeah. Now, there's a lot to know about the balance sheet and dealing with different assets and liabilities. And while I think you should be somewhat educated in it, it's not something that is a good use of your time to really kind of dive into. Yeah. You're better suited growing your business and focusing on that. But a lot of times I'll see a popular approach is you kind of run the P&L. So you're categorizing everything, you're getting those bank feeds cleared out. But when it comes to anything with fixed assets, liabilities, anything.
This is what she's talking about here. If you buy a new rig, if you buy a piece of equipment that's over, what is it, $1,000? $2,500. $2,500. like a really fancy ass computer or something, right? Those are
Yes.
depreciable. They belong on a depreciation schedule. Have a professional do it. Like don't.
Yes. Yes. That's what you want to do. When I was doing this for my restaurants, that's how I did it. I ran the bank feed, and then I knew when there was something that had to do with a liability or a fixed asset, which was something that I purchased, a piece of machinery, equipment, anything like that, over 2,500, I shot him an email and just was like, can you log in and handle this? Just because some of you might watch a YouTube video and be like, hey, I'm good, I'm up to speed, I get it. But it's not a good use of your time trying to figure it out. That's something that you really want to make sure your balance sheet is set up correct. Yeah. Because here's an example. So when she says, something that you can depreciate, just very quick crash course. Essentially what happens is the IRS says, hey, if you buy these big investments for your business, right? So an investment is something that they're saying you're going to use this to make money, right? Long-term off your business. So maybe some type of a piece of equipment that you can make paninis or something. I don't know, something that you have going on in your restaurant. So instead of being able to put all of it on the profit and loss and take that full tax deduction, the government wants you to spread it out. So this is probably set up so that the Walmarts of the world can't go in and just buy, $200,000 pieces of equipment and get out of paying taxes that year, right? They make you space out the tax deduction. So you're going to eventually get it. But if it was $10,000 and there is a 10-year shelf life, the government's going to give you $1,000 tax credit each year. That's basically how depreciation works.
Over the usability of that piece. So
when you can actually get it, that tax credit. So they'll sit it on the balance sheet and then depreciate it, which basically means we allocate a portion of it to the P&L each month. Or each year, when we allocate it, that's when you get the tax deduction. So what I recently saw was an entrepreneur who had bought a fleet of vehicles. Okay, 8 vehicles. It was a dog groomer. So the vans are very expensive because it's a mobile business. Like all of her stuff is in this van. She bought 8 of them. So she went online and was like, okay, well, this is a fixed asset, so I can't put it on my profit and loss. So she put it on her balance sheet. She never allocated it to the P&L. So it's been 2 years of her operating like that, and she has never gotten the tax deduction because they're still sitting on the balance sheet. Right. And she's not getting any type of tax break that she's owed. So the balance sheet can have real implications to your taxability. So I would definitely make sure that you are consulting with a professional, making sure that that is set up properly.
Yeah, I love that because we do, these rigs that I have behind me, almost everyone here has at least one, sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
And so it is important to be depreciating. We could go on all day about depreciation, but basically when you sell it, you're going to basically get back, some of that depreciation. It's important. I'm not saying this at all, and you could definitely be better. But if you depreciate it over time, that gets factored into what you sell it for and what you get taxed on. So if I spent $30,000 on this rig and I've depreciated $5,000 of that over 5 years, then when I sell it, I'm only being taxed on the piece in between the sale and the depreciation.
Yes,
appreciated value. And again, I fudged that up because I'm not a formally trained accountant in any way.
What you said was right, though.
Okay, good. We have a couple really great questions, and I know you have to bow out a few minutes early. And I will try and tackle any questions that you guys have afterwards with the little asterisk that you just need to talk to. You get in that Facebook group and hire Danae because she's going to be much more educated on this.
In the profit factor, at me in there just so that it actually alerts me. But I have a newborn, so I don't sleep. So I am always in there answering questions. So definitely any type of questions you have, worried about S corps or profit and loss or balance sheets. And I'm live in there once a week, and we're doing different trainings. Last week was on the S corp. Tomorrow is all about this second stimulus package. So what's going on with the unemployment, what's going on with second round of PPP, the stimulus checks. That's what we'll be discussing tomorrow at 1.
Awesome. We have a couple questions that I want to make sure you get to touch on, because I think they're so, so important. One of them, okay, that's not even in that one. Okay, Raven, I love this question. I'm glad you've asked it. Some other people have asked it in the past, but I'm going to let her answer it. Do I really need software like this, QuickBooks Wave, if I use Dubsado?
So Dubsado, I actually use Dubsado too. So that is great software for client management. The bookkeeping is not very robust at all, but it gets the job done. It's not, I push everybody into QuickBooks Online. So that's just my bias. I mean, I have clients that are multi-million-dollar companies that are in QuickBooks Online. So it's definitely the most robust, but you don't really need that. If you want to, if Dubsado is working for you, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As long as you are making sure, because the reports are only as good as the information you're feeding into it, right? So if you know that your data in there is correct and you are actually categorizing all of these transactions and you are reconciling. So reconciling is the process of looking at your bank statement and going line by line and making sure every single transaction is accounted for on these financial reports. So this is where you would find if there is a duplicate, right? And this is how you would find if maybe something was missing. Maybe you spent $500 at Target and it's on the bank statement, but it's not in Dubsado, or it's not in QBO, or it's not in Wave. So as long as you're reconciling and your categories are correct, these are all viable options. I mean, the resource that I give you guys is literally a Google Sheet. It's literally a Google Sheet. So as long as we are categorizing and reconciling, you're safe.
I'm really surprised to hear you say that, because my answer would be no, it is not enough. Because does it have full functionality with profit and loss and balance sheet?
I don't know about the balance sheet because I don't use it. I use Dubsado for my contracts, but I don't use it for the bookkeeping end of it.
I find it to be very helpful if you're trying to track expenses associated with a single project. So if you are trying to track expenses for labor and for any of cost of goods sold for that particular, you can see profit margin on using Dubsado on individual events, because that's what we do is events.
Right.
And so like per project, you can get a really good sense. But if you are trying to look at something over time and you are married to Dubsado for all your finances, I just don't know how scalable that is. So for me, I would say no. If you're at the point where, you know, you're just starting out, fine, get started in there. Yeah. But eventually you're going to want to grow up and you're going to want to get a real bookkeeper, or you're going to want to be able to see your numbers and more than just what Dubsado has to offer. And in that case, it's time to get into an actual accounting software. And you'll hear me say
I love QBO. Yeah. That's definitely, and it is, like she said, the industry standard is, I find it to be very user-friendly. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm obviously a QBO partner with them. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I just feel like, my purpose here is to get all the mobile bars to be like successful 6-figure businesses. And you're not going to be running your 6-figure business out of the Dubsado bookkeeping portion of Dubsado, right? Like there's lots of software out there that does a lot of things, but I find that software that does a lot of things only does a few of them very well. And so Dubsado is not even trying to be a full-on accounting software.
Right.
It's trying to be an accounting.
It's just like an add-on.
Exactly. It's just like, hey, if you're a photographer and all you do is, a few, whatever, it may work for you. But if you are a mobile bar like us, we need cost of goods sold. We need to be depreciating. We need a balance sheet. Like these are not things that Dubsado does very well. So I would say invest in, and Wave is free. It's literally free. QuickBooks like $600 a year or something. So, you can always transfer one to the other, but you start with an actual accounting software. So it costs you nothing to try out Wave. So that's my personal plug there, because when you do get a bookkeeper and you say, yeah, everything's in Dubsado, they're going to,
Yeah, they're going to want it to
gonna
be
cringe. And that's what we're trying to do here, is trying to get you guys set up so that when you do get to the point of needing an actual bookkeeper, it doesn't make their lives totally miserable.
Yeah.
I know, right? So we have a couple other questions here. Daryl, I'm going to go real quick through yours. You said my mobile bar business is an LLP, not an LLC, which is fine. I'm an accountant and I know I have to file a form 1065, but what's the difference from an LLC versus an LLP? Is Schedule K1 used on each owner's 1040 form? Yeah.
So I'm assuming he's saying that if he has a K1, that's coming from an investment. That's usually he elected to be an S corp. I can't see, where can I see what he's saying? Because there was a lot of stuff said there.
Under the Q&A section, I think.
I'm looking in the chat. That's why.
I also have a K1 because although I am an LLC, I am a partner with my husband.
So he has a partnership, right? I'm not an LLC. I'm an accountant. But he does have so he just has two businesses. And I know I have to file, but what's the difference from LLC versus, so the LLP means you have a limited liability partnership. I'm assuming you have maybe an actual business partner, or just like what you said, a spouse. I'm not sure maybe if you want to clarify if you have an actual business partner or if you have just like a spouse that you have on there, because the K1 is going to take a look and decide what each member gets. So if you have, let's keep it simple, a 50-50 split, the business is $100,000. So you're going to claim 50K on your K1, whereas the other individual would claim 50K on their K1, as opposed to you both claiming 100K, because then it would be double taxed, right? So you would just have to clarify more on that. Is the Schedule K1 used on each owner? Well, yeah. So I guess he is understanding that then. Yeah. So you take that and you're going to pay taxes based on your K1, and whoever this other person is, I don't know if it's a legitimate business partner or a spouse, that's how we separate it, to ensure that you're not both taking the tax burden because you didn't get that full amount of profitability, right? You had to split it because it was a partnership.
Right. That's a good question. It also is very, as an LLC who files as a K1, because I do have a partner that's over 50%, or well, it's 50%, my husband, they issue K1s instead, which made it a real pain in the ass, pardon my French, to do any of the PPP or EIDL funding, because they were looking for a 1040.
They were looking for that line 31 Schedule C.
It was really, really annoying, because there's lots of people out there that don't have a standard, LLC or a sole proprietorship, but that's who they catered all of that guidance for. They later clarified, but it took forever for that to funnel through. That's just my little mini rant. Okay, let's see. Raven, I have QuickBooks Online. I don't like it. Maybe I'll try to reactivate my love for it, or just download Wave. Check out Wave. It's super easy. I find it to be much more user-friendly than QuickBooks, but again, QuickBooks is the industry standard. It's just really expensive, and I could do what I needed to do through Wave. And then let's see. You, I think, have to bow out right now.
I have a call.
Which is okay. So again, anybody who wants to find her, she's dropped the link to her Facebook in the Zoom chat. And she also has given us a freebie, which is amazing. Thank you so much for that. And any other parting words?
I'll just answer this question real quick. So if somebody says, not sure if it's relevant, but they're asking about hiring people, and they're asking specifically about payroll versus contractors. So that is really something that you want to be careful with, right? So there's very specific guidelines as to who would be considered a contractor and who would be considered an employee. So the reason why they're so strict with this is because if you bring on somebody as a contractor, you don't have to pay payroll taxes on them, right? So the government's getting less taxes. So they're very strict with how they handle that. In your industry, they're going to be employees. I can't really think of a situation where you're going to be able to get away with a contractor. There are several rules and guidelines for contractors, but one of them is that if it is what you mainly do in your business, right? They couldn't be considered a contractor. So what do I mean by that? An example is a cleaning company, right? If they wanted the cleaner to be a contractor, well, the cleaning company that's what they do, right? They clean. So if a contractor is doing what your business does, they're not a contractor, they're an employee. Whereas if a cleaning company hires me and I'm an accountant, I'm a contractor, because that is not what the cleaning company does. And that's just one of the many different tests that they have. But with you guys, you are providing all their materials, right? You're providing the alcohol for the bartenders. You're providing the van, the truck, whatever you guys call it. Like, you are providing all of the supplies, and you are training them. And it's not like a bartender is sort of like a independent person who has their own business and business insurance and all of that. So for you guys, I just can't really wrap my head around a scenario where you would be legally able to I mean, you would know your industry better, but
Yeah.
I can't think from a legal perspective and a finance perspective how that's going to possibly fly.
I'm really glad you took that question, because I was going to wait till you were off to address this, because I have been doing a ton of research in this. I actually have a podcast coming out for anyone who's still with us that talks about why people need to be shifting their 1099 bartenders to W-2s. So I'll talk a little bit more in depth after you get off, but I'm really glad you put
especially too, if anyone's in California, like they don't mess around with that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really glad you weighed in on that.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. I just thought that. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well,
know this is going to be controversial.
Meeting you guys.
Yes,
Good luck with everything, and hopefully I'll see you around in the Profit Factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to join, and I'm super glad that you were able to do this today. I know everyone here has really appreciated it, and but yeah, so thank you. I know you have to hop off. Thank you so much.
I have a call now. Bye, guys.
All right, guys, it's just me now. I'm going to talk about this. Hold on. My face is giant on my screen right now. When she dropped off, I'm like a freaking talking head. Okay. So everything that Danae just said is 100% accurate. And I know that this probably like blew people's minds, because we all use 1099s, right? But here's the thing. The government is on to this, right? The gig economy has changed a lot of things. Uber, Postmates, delivery drivers, shoppers, they are realizing that they're losing a ton of revenue in taxes for, they call it FICA. So unemployment, Social Security, everyone knows what the Social Security crisis, right? And so what they're doing is they are really cracking down. And you know who they go after first? It isn't even tech. Tech has lobbyists. Tech has a ton of lawyers. They go after events, because all the caterers use 1099s, photographers use 1099s, bartenders use 1099s, and they do it retroactively. And that's a real problem. California is seeing this. So a lot of people in California have already switched everybody over to W-2s, because that's where they started. It's coming our way. And it's federal. It's not, I mean, states are going to start it state by state, but federally, they're going to start cracking down. So I know that's a whole nother conversation, but there's my little shtick on that. Let's see, I have a question here. Will you send a copy of this recording Zoom? Lanisha, no, I don't send out the recording of the Zooms, but they are loaded onto mobilebevpros.com if you are a paying member. So you can see the recording if you are a member. Otherwise, it's available live for everyone. And what other questions would you guys have regarding any of this? If I can't answer it, I won't. But it looks like I've answered all the questions that you guys have, or that Danae or I have answered all these questions. I know it's a little over time, but since we started a little late, I will stick around for a few more minutes if anyone has anything. When you say Rachel had a question, I think I answered all of Rachel's questions. Oh, the quarterly taxes and sales tax. Okay, cool. Sorry, I missed that one. Quarterly taxes. I think this is very similar to if you're making a ton of profit. And I say that like your owner's pay is counted towards profit, then the government is going to want that paid quarterly. But if you aren't profiting yet, they're not really going to, care too much about it. It's when you start making a profit that they really want to see the self-employment taxes on that quarterly and not annually. And then sales tax. Okay, so a bit about sales tax. One, the government wants it when it's paid. So if you book an event this month for $1,000 and you take $500 of that, they want the sales tax on that this month. Well, next month, because they give you till the 20th of the next month, but they want that paid to them as you incur it. Now, if they cancel and you refund that $500, you can then deduct that from the month that they canceled. So you can then, you can reclaim that money back from them in the filing of whenever you process that refund. But what you probably should not be doing is holding on to that sales tax for a later time. I have another message here. Okay, Wendy says not all states have sales tax on services. This is true. Most do. Most do. Most states consider services to be a taxable service. But again, check with your local states. Yeah, Florida does. Tennessee does. I've actually worked in a lot of states doing accounting and bookkeeping. So the Tri-City area the Washington, D.C. does, New York does, Virginia does, Tennessee does, Florida does. Yeah, so those are all states I know where services are taxable. Any other questions before we hop off? Was this helpful to people? Was this educational? Did you learn something? Drop an emoji or a yes or anything else. Amazing. For people that are maybe not overly familiar, there's a chart of accounts. If you're just getting set up, you can find that on the Mobile Bev Pros resource section. I have the profitability worksheet. So in the very beginning, Danae talked about, this is not a hobby, this is a business. You should be setting yourself up to be, profitable and to be making money. Use the profitability worksheet to make sure that your pricing is good and that you are where you need to be with the number of events that you need to do in order to get to where you want to be financially. That's new that I just dropped. There is also a kick-ass costing sheet, which is a little bit more detailed and than the profitability when it comes to different parts of pricing for an event. So profitability is kind of like an annual look, and the kick-ass costing sheet really allows you to cost out individual events to make sure that you're making the margins that you need on individual events when you're getting your pricing down. Lanisha, yes, this is all for paying members, correct. Now, there is a pricing guide that is on mobilebevpros.com that is free, and that is not to tell you how to price your services. It's just to kind of give you some suggestions as to different ways that you can price mobile bar services. So, everyone's like, well, how do you price your services? Some people package, some people do it a la carte, some people do it per person, per head. And so it just gives suggestions or examples, and that is freebie. Cool. Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, if there are no other questions, then we'll end this. And then for anybody who is a member of MVP, you'll see it loaded within the next 48 hours. It will have a link to the freebie that was provided by Danae. And I highly recommend everybody join her Facebook group, because there are probably some questions that will come up that you haven't asked yet. And she's a really great resource. So thank you all. Oh, one more question here. Sales tax on packages versus individual items. I think it's the same. Your state might have different sales tax depending on what the item is. If that is the case, you would probably want to break that out and not tax it all together. But here in Nashville, it's all the same. It's 9.725. And so everything gets taxed the same. All right, guys, thanks so much. And we'll do this again next month. Next month, the topic is client experience. And so we'll have a workshop specific to that topic. If you want to follow us on Instagram so that you can be a part of the announcement, it's mobilewebpros.com, or we always post it in the Facebook group as well, which is also Mobile Web Pros.